over to you.
Okay. First off, let me apologize. There's a bit of roadworks where I am, so it might be a bit noisy here and there. But that aside, hi everyone, I'm Leanne. I'm from Nexus. Thanks for joining us today at Nexus FrontierTech's webinar session with AI Singapore. The first time we were here, we received feedback that the apprentices wanted a more technical look into our work. So for our second session today, we'll be taking a more in-depth look into our development processes and our solutions. So let's get into it. Nexus FrontierTech, as some of you may know by now, is an AI solutions provider that focuses on making enterprise workflows and processes faster, better, and smarter. We do this by making data available. But I won't go too much into it so you can hear from the real experts. Allow me to introduce our chief AI scientist and co-founder, Hajime Hota. From Tokyo, he is a serial entrepreneur who has had several successful ventures in Japan. He invented and led the core product at Sirius Technologies, which was acquired by Yahoo Japan, and also led Series A funding at Naked Tech, which was then sold to Mixi Japan. He has a PhD in AI and a strong academic background in AI and AI web application. So let me now pass the time to Hajime-san to start the session off.
Hello, thank you very much. Yeah. Can you hear? Okay. Yeah. My name is Hajime again, and thanks, Leanne, for introducing myself. I'm a co-founder of Nexus FrontierTech, and I'm leading the AI part of the company. Now, today, I would like to talk a little bit about what Nexus FrontierTech is doing and what is the trend change that we are seeing. But by the way, I am now based out of KL, Kuala Lumpur, but I'm originally from Japan, and I have already written 2 books. Both of them are about the AI strategy and all that. So what I have seen is a significant change of the AI trends in the world. And then I believe that Nexus is now on the very advanced level of the AI technology provider as a startup in the world, I think. So yeah, this slides basically talk about a Nexus, and we are actually we have 3 co-founders, including myself. I'm more AI. And Danny is a CEO. Basically, she's a sales guy, and Takaki is a co-founder and a CTO. And one of the very strong characteristics, and I'm very proud of, is actually the balance between the academic side of the AI and the system implementation side of the AI altogether. Because a lot of companies in the world are basically either of the side. One is more just a data science and more research driven, and then the other side of the company is more system driven too much, and then basically just utilizing the API of a lot of the AI algorithm, but they're basically integrating those things to provide an end-to-end service. But what we are doing is essentially combining those 2 sides. The one is more algorithm driven, data driven, and then the other side is more system driven, the real application driven. Combining those both sides together to build the end-to-end system, really contributing to the real business processes. And that is what I'm proud of. And we are leveraging Vietnam base, having more than 100 people there to build up great systems together to deliver to the big corporates in the world. So our journey as AI startups is like this. We are starting around 2015 to 2017. We built up this, starting from a very small team and gathering 10 members. And we are growing all together by spending 3 years or something. But it's more about there's no AI projects or whatever projects if clients really want, we build those things. And then we are pivoting ourselves to focus sharply on the AI around 2018. And that is the time we expand our business development teams in the UK and in Singapore. So we have built quite a good team. And now we have very strong, even during the time around 2018 to 2019, like we are dealing with several corporates, including the finance, but it's not only limited to those things. But from 2020, like we focus more sharply into the finance and the government sectors. And like we are expanding our team continuously and building a great, like the revenue models as well. So what I have seen so far is that go to the previous slides. Sorry, is like around the like 2014 actually. We have seen the first very big deal of the DeepMind. DeepMind is like one of the largest like AI research company having acquired by the Google, which happened in, I think it's half billion US dollar, which happened around 2014 to 15, and hence like the AI as an industry came the big things. But at that time, it's a very research driven. Like we are a deep learning startup, and that is the majority of the big corporates. And then the 2018 to 2020 is more about like we are shifting algorithm driven to a little bit more application driven. But it's we can do the voice recognition. We can do, let's say let's say the AI OCR. OCR means that like the reading the letters from the images. Those technology driven companies are very well. I mean, are what the most successful at that time. And then around the 2020, it changes again to more end-to-end product driven. End-to-end means like what is the AI products or AI services, whatever, which directly contributes to the business processes or like directly connects to the real value delivered to the corporates directly. So it's not like an algorithm or it's not like a systems or functions, but like, can you increase the revenue or can you like reduce the cost? That direct questions to the about the contribution to the business is very required, and that is a significant change around 2019 to 2020, and that is why we've also focused on the end-to-end product. So next slide, please. Yeah, and the trends in the enterprise AI market is like this. Why this shift happened is that first, from a technology point of view, until actually the time Google invented BERT, like the very big breakthrough in the natural language processing, which like enables us to build the, let's say, the conversational AI, or maybe it's extracting the very like high quality informations, like very big breakthrough happened. And then the technologies are getting more and more commoditized at this moment. So just getting the technology is very easy at this moment. And like it's like plenty of technical papers talking about like how to implement those things in a very detailed way. That means like we can implement not so difficult way. And then another side is the use cases. Like you know, now even this year, like so many of the startups have raised like $100 million above. And then so many of the companies, AI-driven companies, are now becoming unicorn or even above. So like the use cases, that means that they can raise money because like, they have proven the business model to be profitable very well. That means like we have identified quite a lot of the patterns of the monetizations already. That means like use cases is also mature. So that means that like the technology is commoditized and the use case is very mature. That means like we can just do quite a lot of things based on the knowledges that we can find in the global market. And also like we are contributing to the end-to-end. The most important thing here is that even though the technology is commoditized, like we definitely need the data to train AI, otherwise we cannot build the high quality things. And that is why the strategy is now the most important thing. All right, so that's all, and I pass the talk to Derrick.
Thanks, Hajime. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Derrick. I'm the Lian, do you want to do the transition?
I was going to.
Okay.
I was going to. Oh, okay.
Thank
So
you.
Derrick's actually the Chief Operating Officer of Nexus. He's I think been with us one of the longest in Singapore. He is formerly with MES. He has over a decade of experience in financial services. He worked alongside senior public and private stakeholders across central banking, regulation, market development, and product innovation. He was responsible for growing Singapore's capital markets and pioneered 2 retail investment product launches for the Singapore government. And now Nexus is lucky to have him as our Chief Operating Officer. So you can take the stage, Derrick.
Thank you. Thanks, Lian and Hajime as well for giving a big overview. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Derrick. Before, I think my current section is, I think I want to give a bit more detail into how Nexus as an AI company operates. And I use some of the actual client examples that we have to give you a more, hopefully a better understanding of how we collaborate with clients and the solutions we build, and to go quite detailed into some of the processes on an actual client solution that we have collaborated and delivered on over a course of about 1.5 to 2 years. After that, part of that, I'll also show a short demo in terms of what are some of the capabilities that we built in order to give you a flavor. So I think before we go into that, we have prepared a short, I think this is just a corporate video to explain a bit visually on what we do. So I'm going to play the video, and then after that, I will continue with the presentation. So Harry, if you can do, thank you. Thank you. So as the video showed just now, I think and as Hajime mentioned, I saw the idea is how do we bring AI technology into a business use case, right? So from a technical perspective, since you guys are more on a technical background, what we actually do is try to combine both AI as well as traditional technology. And in a simple way is to make data usable for decision making. I think where we started is we worked with a couple of large banks, and at that point in time, RPA was really, really very hot, right? It is still very hot, but RPA was really budding, and people were exploring using RPA technology to string together different business processes in order to achieve operational efficiency and so on and so forth. I think one of the main limitations of RPA, as you guys know, and I think we found out quite early, is that they can't deal with unstructured data. So that's where Nexus, as an AI firm, we entered into different business process to help to apply AI technology to convert all forms of unstructured data, which is on the left side, the data sourcing part, right? Whether is it financial reports, PDFs, personal documents like your pay slips, bank statements, voice recordings between the bank and clients, obviously traditional web scraping, building chatbots, as well as social media. So a lot of this data exists in unstructured format. So the key is how do we, as this data source, how do we use different techniques, including what we call IDP, which is using AI to extract both the textual and spatial meaning to create semantic data, as well as other traditional techniques like web scraping using different API technology. And where the real value for us when the AI comes in is in, AI is at the fundamental, it's all about classification. So how do we combine AI-driven labeling and as well as the human in the loop labeling to create a system that not only achieves high accuracy, but can also improve over time. So at the back end is a lot of, I think, operations tools, as well as how we are structured to achieve high accuracy labeling. And then finally, like you saw in the video, we also have a large system engineering division. So putting together the data in the form of dashboards or adding more algorithms at the end to either do predictions or decision making at the end to allow business users to use the data and then to make decisions. So this is, I think, our what we call the technical operating model from the data source right down to the decision making. Then next, Harry, please. And like Hajime mentioned, not only is it about the data flow and automation, but it's about how do we deploy it as an enterprise solution. So we also have developed our own AI platform, which is a proprietary platform. What you see below is basically all the backend infrastructure, whether it's validators, infrastructure, model trainers, and that's where also the AI models sit. So at the backend system is the infrastructure that we provide to our clients. And on top of it is where we build the different more domain-specific business applications. So whether the AI solution needs to deal with a problem in ESG compliance or KYC onboarding, that's where the application sits. So because we started out, like Hajime said, we did a lot of, not only the AI kind of work, but a lot of the system integration type of work. So we end up building large applications that incorporate AI. And these projects also tend to be quite long. So basically the main takeaway is, I think one aspect of the business is looking at the data automation flow. The other aspect is about deploying it efficiently in a way that can scale, whether is it on the cloud or on-premise. So I will do a very, very quick demo just to give you a sense of what do we mean by dealing with unstructured data. So on the slide, you would see that basically, let's say in your onboarding, you're going to open a bank account. You have to provide your payslip. This example is in the UK. One of the simple checks that people have to do is, for example, check your address and check your net income. Like, is what you report in your application form, is it verified by your salary slip and then the slip in your bank statement? So pay slips come in large different variations depending on the company that issues. So the quality, real world data is always, not so ideal. Depends on how you take the photo or scan the picture. So the source data comes in inconsistent qualities, very different layouts like what you see on the screen, different naming conventions, and so on. So the question is, how do we take in such a large amount of variation and spit out structured and semantic data, which is basically key value pairs in a harmonized taxonomy to allow you to run different sorts of validation checks. So this is just one example. So Harry, if you could allow me to quickly share my screen. So what you see on screen is a demo environment. So we use this to our clients to explain our capabilities. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload a payslip live. And at the back end, the AI model loaded behind will process it. I think it shouldn't take more than 15, 20 seconds. Oops. Hold on, let me just refresh my browser. I got locked out. Okay, so let me try that again. Okay, so this demo app is a simple visualization to show the output, right? So we usually use this to communicate to both business and technical users to give them an idea of what the model does. So in this case, as you can see, the input document is I would say low to medium quality payslip. It's a bit grainy. There are some shadows. There are folds. So also clearly, someone who wants to open a bank account, use their phone to take a photo. So you can see the shadow of the phone here. So the model requires to do a few things, what we call pre-processing. That means to clean up the whole document as clean as possible using different computer vision techniques to improve the quality of the source document. After which it would then have to figure a way to extract the required information. Payslips are a bit tricky because the field and the value does not always correspond side by side, not left to right. Sometimes it's top to bottom, and sometimes it's enclosed within this. So we need to figure out a way to generalize extraction to be able to deal with multiple pay slips. So in this case, for example, you can see that, let's say the customer name, Sam Murphy, is a bit faint, but if you look closely on the left panel, you'll see a little pink box that, when I when I hover on, it tries to tell you where the data is extracted from. So if you see the address, 93 Park Place, if you look at the panel at the bottom left, there's a pink box that shows you where it's extracted from. So some of these user features are just to allow someone to quickly verify and check. And for example, if this name is extracted wrongly, you can always change it to say, Sam Derrick or something. And that not only allows us to achieve the end accuracy that's required, it also allows us to capture changes, and changes become then structured data for us to retrain the models. So it's a combination of AI as well as a front-end user interface to allow us to do this. The field that is usually required is the net income field. So again, net income can be explained in many ways: net pay, net salary. Sometimes we have to do some calculations. But what the bank requires is a harmonized taxonomy. So these are the different steps that I think you can see on the screen to allow with simple and quick extraction. So I mean, all of you are engineers and technical people. Once the data is in structured format, you can run different form of analysis and validation checks and draw all sorts of trends and so on. So that's the main idea, which in our view is the hardest part we observe in most business process, is the ability to convert the unstructured data into structured data. And from there, it's usually a bit more downstream in terms of automating the data flow. So Harry's going to bring up the slide again. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about actual enterprise client solution. So on screen, you have just some of the solutions we've built in the last 2 years. So we are quite focused in the finance space. So in banking space, like automating mortgage loan onboarding, financial spreading, wealth product sales, and then in the investment management space, and also in the government and other space. So these are the type of use cases. It's not technology specific, right? It's about what problem is the technology trying to solve. So the case that I'm going to share with you this afternoon is what we call the wealth products sales onboarding, which is a project that we did with a large global bank. Harry, if you could go to the next slide, please. So a quick overview. So what did we want to achieve, right? The objective, right, for the bank is to provide a seamless customer onboarding experience for their wealth clients. So, for wealth, if you want to buy a new investment product or a new life insurance, or you want to do sort of whole life planning, a lot of the banks provide such services in Singapore, like DBS, maybe DBS Treasures or Bank of Singapore equivalent, right? Wealth services. So to automate the customer onboarding, because there are a lot of documentation involved, either from the client side or from the advisor side, they have to do KYC, financial planning, talk through your investment goals, etc., and document all this very strictly according to MAS's regulations. So the scope where Nexus came in is that currently the process takes a long time, a couple of weeks to go through all the documents and then pass through from sales to control to audit to compliance and then to audits and so on before all these products are being approved. So the idea is if you can automate a lot of the data processing, we can not only streamline the whole onboarding journey, but also make it more pleasant. For example, if you provided some document that had information incomplete, instead of the bank calling you 3 days later, say, hey, can you provide that document? And you're like, which one? On the spot, if the salesperson can say, we did a scan and some documents are missing, some data points are not clear or the quality is not good enough, you can clarify on the spot. So these are some of the objectives that we set out to achieve. In terms of the scope from a technical perspective, there are a few things that Nexus had to deliver. One is obviously an AI solution that enables the straight-through documentation checks. Right? So we had to look at the documents involved in wealth product sales, in investments, protection, which is insurance, holistic planning, estate planning, and so on. So it has to cover a broad range of documents. The second is that it has to deal with what we call the real world characteristics. So, it's not like you do POCs and then, get nice clean documents with nice data annotated for you. So we have to deal with real world documents, the PDFs, scan, photos like you saw just now, various quality, mix of handwritten and typed text. Some of these documents are third-party documents, right? Like if you go to your DBS relationship manager and you have to buy a Aviva life insurance product. So the documentation provided by third party, in this case Aviva, it will depend on Aviva. So as a bank, you can't really control the documents, and then you come in different layout, and every provider has different terminologies. And some of the documents have thousands and thousands and thousands of lists and table and structures. So these are things that make it very difficult to use any sort of off-the-shelf solution, or it's not something that you can handle using existing software. The third challenge for us is that for banks, as you know, their data policy is very strict, right? So banks are not allowed to share customer data outside of the environment. So for us to do the development off-premise, we have to work off a very limited sample data set, and then we need to generate data for model training. So we use a mix of proprietary, obviously some transfer learning, pre-trained models, but we still need to generate synthetic data if we need to train something from scratch or to fine-tune some of the machine learning pre-trained models. So generating synthetic data is a large part of the projects because of the limited sample data size. Finally, the last challenge, the last challenge is it's not just about doing a POC, right? It's about implementing in the system. And then how do we work with the bank to continuously improve the model and to continuously deliver new patches and new update in a hybrid system? Meaning there's an on-premise where the access is restricted, and then some of the development takes place in the cloud for efficiency and better scaling. So how do we deal with all the data issues, delivery and integration issues? This is where we have to bring our system architects, engineers, and working with the client. So it's a highly customized solution in order to solve a very large problem for the bank. They have more than 40,000 staff, and they have millions of customers. So it's a project that we were very targeted on. Harry? So this gives you a sense of sort of the project phases and life cycle. I think most of the phases are not new to you guys, especially if you've done some hands-on work with some of your existing partners. So it starts with data and discovery. Usually this is 2 to 3 months of business analysis, understanding the data, the processes, and so on. And then the bulk of it is the development, where we have to prepare the data, annotate the data, develop the model, refine the model, test it, and refine it on feedback. And this is a loop that goes on continuously. For this actual project, it took about 12 months. So all in, from the point we started the analysis to the point where we almost deliver it, is about close to 12 to 15 months. And finally, then to deploy it and to continuously support and maintain and improve it, we have a multi-year, obviously, contract with the bank. So each project like this, you can see is a 3 to 4 year venture for us. And with this bank, because we've done quite a lot of work, we've done sort of 3 similar work. So we have different streams running with the bank to solve different use cases. And what sort of people work together to deliver this? From the bank side, from the client side, you have obviously the business service owners. They are their own data scientists and system architects. And from our end will be the ML engineers, system engineers. We also have our own business analysts, dedicated project managers to manage the tasks. And then we have our ML, or in some cases you'll call it DevOps, as well as our own internal quality assurance and quality control teams to ensure that any bugs or and quality issues are tested right at the start and delivered continuously. So diving a little bit deeper, I chose an example to give you a sense of how do we deal with real documents that the layouts will keep changing over time, right? We cannot really predict it. So the AI is not a linear system, as you already know. It's not like this is a problem, this is a solution, and then it's done. But to create a way to have a feedback loop so that the system continuously improves and deals with real-world data and increases the accuracy over time. So one of the problems that we have to deal with is, given that this set, in this case, will be the insurance application forms from third parties. Given that the layout will keep changing, how can we design a system that is flexible and change over time? So what you see on the screen in terms of the green boxes and flow is what I think we call the happy path. So you take the document, you process it. What we do is we use different algorithms to analyze the layout, to understand the metadata of the document, the layout, the spatial meaning. Then we classify it to different document types. And what we did is we designed a flow where if it's a known document layout, then it enters a pipeline. So this pipeline is again like 30, 40 models strung together. So I'm simplifying here. And if it's a document that we do not understand, then it goes to an unknown document processing pipeline, which is a lot longer because we have to generalize a way to read different layouts. So this is the happy path. And then I think one of the two main challenges which I wanted to share a bit, and hopefully you'll find interesting, is one, which on the early part is how do we prepare data to train our layout analyzers and classifiers based on the historical data from the bank, right? That's the first problem. And then the second problem is, as if it's not bad enough because the historical data is already very messy and very varied. Second problem is how do we continuously deal with new documents and layouts, right? So when we see new documents that are unknown, how do we continuously deal with this to improve this? So the first problem is that we have to build internal tools to allow us to cope with the layout variation. So the blue boxes are sort of internal models that we use. One is a layout annotator. So we have to build a system that allows us to annotate the layout data. For example, when we look at the data, the AI would do some rough classification. And then we use the layout annotator tool to refine it, like, oh, this is a question, this is an answer, this is a box, this is a header, this is a section, right? So that creates a high quality annotated data to allow us to understand the layout of documents in a much clearer way. So the layout annotator creates data that allows us to train our layout analyzer. And this is one part of the process to improve the layout analysis process. The layout annotator is also very important for us to spit out the layout in a JSON output, right? In a structured output. So that is used to then as a base to generate synthetic data. Whether we need to generate synthetic data for handwritings, to simulate different layout changes, or to simulate different text for training different OCR components. That synthetic data is then used to train the document classifier as well as different components within the known document layout processing pipeline. So the idea here is that we cannot only rely on traditional development flow. We need to think about the whole operations of the data part, as well as how to create synthetic data for training, and how do we use different tools to annotate and to improve the training data set. So that's the first part. And then the second part, Harry, go to the next slide, which is the last one also, is that in the real production environment, when we encounter new layouts, obviously we have an existing pipeline to deal with it, but how do we then feedback the new layout as new training data into our layout analyzer and then use that to create known document layouts? The reason is because the accuracy definitely for known document layouts will be much higher than unknown document layouts. So over time, the more layouts we see, the better we can improve the library of the known document layouts. So these loops create a system where the bank now is in a position where I don't need to care if my service providers change their model, change their application form. They can change their terminology, because the system is able to cope with new data that comes in and to keep improving the system. So this in summary is what we think about, not just about individual components, which algorithms can help to achieve high accuracy, do the data transformation. But from a system perspective, how do we create a system that's sustainable, that can really run in production, not just in POC, and that business users can use as the real environment changes. So I hope this gives you a sense of the processes involved. I think one question that I think you guys would definitely have in your mind is, when it comes to synthetic data, is how do we deal with the risk of training data bias, right? Basically, in your terminology, which is overfitting. So what we do in actuality, is to look at the real data. We do observe, and the documentation is key. How do we observe and document the characteristics and agree them with our clients? Having continuous client feedback on the training data, how representative is it? We also explore combinations of public data set. The trade-off is between overfitting and obviously a lot of noise if the public data sets are not so representative of the actual client data. We need to, like I said, the system of how we continuously evaluate real data performance. In production, how do we embed retraining features so that the users can do some retraining without always coming back to the vendor, which is us. And also ultimately understand what sort of data is being presented, what sort of data is being used for decision making, and is there any bias, is there any ethical issues, and things like that. All this think about AI ethics and white boxing the whole solution. It's not just a black box where the data comes in and something happens. So we have to make sure that all the components are explainable, so that for the user perspective, everything is clear and transparent, and we know exactly what happens at each stage. So these are just some of the things that I think you guys probably know in terms of how do we overcome training data bias. Now I'll pass the time back to Lian, who will introduce our last speaker for today.
Yeah, so I'm sure many of you are excited to hear from him. Harry, some of you may recognize him from his days as an apprentice in AI Singapore, maybe. Harry joined us recently as our solutions architect, quickly becoming a valued member in our products team. And he kindly agreed to work extra hours today so he could take time out for this session just to share more about his work at Nexus. So at the end of his sharing, please feel free to pepper him with as many questions as you want. Nothing is off limits. Okay, I'll let him introduce himself now. Harry, please.
Yeah, thanks, Lian. But just to start off, whatever she said is not exactly accurate. So please go kind on me. Yeah, so I will be changing the pace a bit. I will be talking a little bit about some of my experiences, career and opportunities. And I believe a lot of you join AIAP to transition into a new career. So I also want to share a bit about how I transitioned, and also some of the opportunities that you will encounter in the future and how to look at it. So let me just share a bit of my own path first. So I actually started, my major in undergrad is actually in finance, and I did internship in corporate banking. So a very finance-like kind of path. Then I moved into tech, which is in business development, which is in sales. And then next to Luxoft, which is as consulting associate, and also consulting this main product called Murex and attachment to DBS. And then I realized I wanted to learn more technical stuff. That's where I slowly moved into MITB, and also another internship in DBS, and then AIAP batch 7, and did a 100E project in NLP for a major Swiss bank. And then I ended up where I am right now, which is as a solution architect at Nexus FrontierTech. So it's definitely not a very traditional path, and I wouldn't say there's any pros and cons to this kind of path. I believe there is always some takeaways that you can learn. Of course, you know, like people that work like maybe 10 to 15 years in a career, but there is, maybe it would be better for me to just maybe like work like many years as a solution architect. But I believe you can learn a lot from different roles and have a very multidisciplinary approach, and also you can see things differently from different roles and industries. So yeah, this is what I feel, and I think it's also very applicable for many of you. So let me share a little bit about my current role. So my current role is a solution architect, which sits in the solutions team. So how we see ourselves is that we see ourselves as the bridge between the sales team and the engineering team. So when the sales team encounters any opportunities, they will qualify the account, identify the pain points, but they definitely need the help of someone that is very technical and to know exactly how to solve it from a technical point of view. But at the other end of it, as the engineering team, they may not know exactly how to communicate all these different requirements across. So this is where solutions team comes in. And my main function include like being the technical guy in the sales cycle, explaining the models that we use and how our products work, and also able to give the confidence to the clients and address any concerns that the clients may have around our models, and also to customize some of the models and fine tune it to our clients' requests, and also work with the engineering team and estimate the time and effort needed to deliver the product. So this is mainly my job scope. So just quickly going through, I'm not claiming that I already found my ideal job or anything, but it's just some framework that I see is good to visualize how we can look for things. So I think I have transitioned quite a bit, and through this whole journey, I think I can see myself better and understand myself better, what I like and what I don't like. So this is just a framework on how to find like something that you think will be sustainable in the long term. And in the current Singapore industry, I do feel that there's a very big tech boom, and the first thing that they are always looking for is a lot of software engineers. And I think a lot of you may be applying to jobs like this, or ML, AI, data engineer, scientist roles. But what they really need is really people with specific domain knowledge, and that's where you can leverage your past experiences and together with your technical skills to really enter into some of these roles. And really through this, you can find out what are the things that you are good at and what are some of the things you love. And I don't think it's very likely that you can find the perfect job, but maybe to some extent, some of the main criteria that you value will definitely be good. And let me just go through some of the things that I think my batch has went through, and definitely very applicable to current batch 8, and maybe things for the batch 9 to think about in the next few months. So I believe in the next few months, you for the batch 9, you go into 100E projects, and you be working with clients, and then you be working with code, and you realize some of the things that you like in your schedule, like how much do you want to dive into code, and how much do you want to talk to the clients, how you like to pitch them also. So my main point here is that there are actually many roles that are tech and tech adjacent. Even I think you definitely indicated an interest in AI to sign up for this program, but there are many roles in this industry that you can also take a look at. It's not just AI engineer. It can be things like solutions architect, AI engineer, data engineer, data analyst, scientist, and software engineer. These are some of the paths that my batchmates took. And some of the industries that they are in, some like enterprise software companies like SAP, consumer products, Dyson, government, some of the apps, Shopee, Gojek, Carousel, and also some of the other fintechs. But there are also a lot of other tech roles that or tech adjacent roles that your AIAP knowledge will be very valuable. And together with your own domain knowledge and some of your past experiences, it will really value add. And these are some of the industries that you have domain knowledge in, DevOps role, industry development roles, some technical PM roles if you are looking at managing projects, and if that's something that you like to pursue, and some tech product management, of which there are a lot of AI products that are coming out, and even the product management side, your AI knowledge will definitely be very valuable. So these are the things that I want to emphasize. Like, you don't have to box yourself into just the AI engineer role, but there are a lot of other things that you can also explore. And I think in the subsequent slides, Derrick can also share about some of the opportunities that Nexus are currently offering.
Thanks, Harry. I think the one point that he mentioned that I think is important for the you guys know as you think about your next steps. I think one is the domain specific skill sets is actually highly important for the engineering capacity. The more cross-functional I think your skill sets, I think the more mobile and the more highly sought after you are in the tech industry. We don't really lack a lot of like pure engineers or pure domain. I think what the market needs is somewhere in the middle, where you can leverage your own industry experience, background in any field, and then combine it with the technical understanding. So I think how Harry put it was really very accurate for his role at Nexus. To the business side, he's a technical person, but to the technical side, he's the business person. So you always need to switch between these two mindsets. So just to wrap up our presentation is just to also explain why Harry is having so much fun with Nexus. So it's just about a little bit more about the human aspects of Nexus. You know, during especially during this period of COVID, how have we functioning as a team? So we have 4 major offices in Japan, Vietnam, London, and Singapore. So these are some of the photos that we've had for outings. Obviously, they are all within legal limits and taken during legally compliant times. So in Singapore and London is really where most of the business-facing teams are. They're obviously technical people like Harry, but by and large, Singapore and London are where more the client-facing functions are. And then in Japan and also in Vietnam is where most of our ML engineers, software engineers, data annotators, project managers. So you can see in the Vietnam team, for example, like Hajimin said, we have a very large team there. Because a lot of the AI operations is being supported out of Vietnam. So this gives you a flavor of what life looks like in Nexus. Next slide. In the remote working environment as well, a challenge for us has been how do we stay connected while being remote, and how do we as a startup continue to move fast? So what we realize a lot is the culture and the social bonding. And so, you know, we have to put a lot of effort to share information, create remote working challenges. The bottom right matrix is actually one of the algorithms we built for our one of the algorithms that we implemented. K-means clustering, somewhere you know. So we implemented internal program that, you know, you fill up a question and then we'll find your Nexus soulmate based on some clustering characteristics. So then you can understand who you are near with. So things like that, we try to be creative. We try to use a bit of the AI work that we do in order to also ensure that the team continues to grow and stay close to one another, whether it's offline or online. And finally, like what Harry mentioned, we are still hiring quite a lot. So these are the roles that are available. And the parts in greens are the ones that we are hiring in Singapore. So if you guys want to find a little bit more about Nexus or what some of these roles entail, as you're thinking about like what Harry said, the various roles that you can possibly look at, feel free to reach out to Harry or myself or Lian. We can have a chat, tell a little bit more about where we see the industry, where we see the different roles demand are, and what some of these things entail, and what probably you need to take or to prepare in order to be successful as these roles. So these are just some of the things that are also available on our website. Feel free to go there to take a look. So with that, I just want to thank you for the last 1 hour of kind attention. We left some time just for Q&A, and we are here. So please feel free to ask us anything, whether about projects or people or work or opportunities, or you want to grow your alumni on how did you really involve, or anything that you want to ask him. Please feel free to fire away.
Can I ask the first question?
Yes, sir.
I'm Alvin. Just
Hi.
a very simple one. So what's the hiring time frame of these positions? Because I know that we are graduating next year, August. So just to understand what's the hiring time frame. Thank you.
Thank you. So like many tech companies, we are looking to answer in 2 ways. One is we are always on the lookout for talent. So some of these positions have more immediate vacancies. So do contact us to find out if there's a specific one that you are interested in. As for some of you who may be graduating next year, I think my advice is no harm reach out also to find out a bit more what the role entails. And like what Harry mentioned, that there's a lot of demand for technical roles. Pretty sure 6 to 9 months later, there will still be these roles and in fact more as we continue to expand and take on more clients. So if in doubt, just feel free to reach out to us. We'll be very happy and open to sharing what this roles entails, and obviously telling you the specific vacancies and timelines in these areas. Typically, just to add a bit more for tech hiring, it's usually, the typical interviews, but depending on the level that you're coming in, there may also be a technical test just to see your experience and thought process, depending on the type of role and the seniority that you want to apply for. So I think it's quite common, not just with Nexus, but in other firms as well. So be prepared to research a little bit more about company, what they do, and then anticipate a little bit of maybe the kind of technical tests or questions that they may pose as part of the hiring process. I hope that answers your question, Alvin.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I have a question. So I'm Simon. So I realized
Hello.
that the headcount is very strong in Vietnam or Hanoi. So from what I understand, ML and AI is that there is always privacy related to data. So is Nexus looking to expand the operation across APAC, or is it generally still focused on customer primarily in Vietnam?
Yeah, so actually we have no customers in Vietnam. The team in Vietnam is, for AI to operate, a lot of it's on the data preparation side. So we have a large team to look at the data preparation, annotation, and creating a lot of internal operations to allow ML engineers like yourself to do your coding and tasks much more efficient. But if you think about it, what makes an AI company better than another AI company? Obviously one element is the talent, like, who can attract the better engineering pool to utilize the latest algorithms and solve the business problems. But another key differentiator is a company's, how the way it's set up, how it enables their own engineers to do their work faster and better than other engineers in other companies. So that's what I mean by a lot of internal data operations that we need to think about in order to be competitive as an AI startup. As your question, how then do we deal with customer data privacy protection? One of the challenge, like I mentioned earlier, is in the financial space. Customer data cannot leave the system, right? So it cannot even come to us. So we need to think of ways to design models, to design solutions to work with a very, very small data set, but able to generalize the process to deal with real data set in the environment. So that's one of the key challenge. It's not like we are allowed access into the bank system and then we can see everything. It's usually a very small data set. So because it's small, it's anonymized and the consent has been given, there's no issue once it's been shared to outside, whether the teams are sitting in Japan or Vietnam. The key is not so much about the data protection because that's already safeguarded at the bank side, but how do we be creative to deal with real world data with a small data set? So that's the real challenge when it comes to data privacy. We're working with large banks. When we work with partners to create SaaS products, and those are different because then the product itself, the setup, they need to meet the local laws. For example, we launch a product here with a partner, it has to be PDPA compliant. So how do you deal with personal data? No different from, I think, how you use traditional software and stuff like that, the safeguards, legal safeguards, and the technical safeguards to ensure that personal data is being protected. So on cloud systems, the security and the data setups have to be properly done and in compliance with local laws, whether it's PDPA in Singapore or GDPR in Europe. So that's how we think about data privacy issues. Thanks for the question, Simon.
So just another question. So from what I get from oversense is that Nexus seems to be more focused on data labeling and offering SaaS to customer in general. So what is the goal, as in what is Nexus trying to achieve maybe like in 5 year time as a tech company? Which direction is it growing into?
Yeah. So I think that when we look at data labeling and stuff like that, it's looking at applications from a data perspective. As you know, all ML algorithms at the end is about classifying data into certain categories and then using the data for prediction and stuff like that. So a large part of the operations would be labeling the data. Either you have a pre-labeled data set if you're lucky. If you're not lucky, then we have to create our own systems to label the data where we develop and also label the data on an ongoing basis. So that is from a data perspective. But the real objective is how do we translate this into an actual business case? For example, the example I gave just now is let's say customer onboarding, right? Pre-labeled data, labeling data just means that when you submit your payslip, right? How do you make sure that the name is semantically linked to name, address is semantically linked to name? It's not just a bunch of text, because once it's structured, then you can run different types of compliance checks. So if your data is labeled, then you can create algorithms that does this classifying easily. But if it's not, if there's new data, then how do you label it to retrain the model or to achieve a high accuracy? For example, if Simon, you submit a payslip that the model has never seen before and cannot deal with it, so likely the output will be very poor, right? So how do we have a human intervention to label it so that the business outcome, that means the onboarding of you as a customer, continues to be achieved, while at the same time we use the labeled data to improve the accuracy of the model to deal with new data variation. So the end goal, I think, for us is to still be able to deliver applications that make an impact in the real business world, which is why I say it's very important that for us, when we look for engineering or technical capabilities, the ability for you to understand the domain, which is, whether it's financial services and so on, and to imagine a solution that can work, then the technical part will come in as to how you deliver the solution. So the understanding the business domain is really important. Our vision is to continue to deliver real production level AI applications that can transform real business processes. That is, I think, what we are trying to achieve here. Thank you.
Okay,
we are
thank you.
we're a bit over time. Maybe one last question for your alumni, to try to divert attention. Any last questions before we end? I know that we are a bit overrunning.
Maybe I will just answer the one. I will just answer the one on the chat. Will you be able to give an example of the sentiment analysis and how it affects decision-making workflow? So one of our products is on ESG. We work with an asset management company, and ESG is environmental, societal, and governmental. So the asset management company is looking to use annual reports and news to help them with their investing decisions. And one part of it is controversial news classifier, which on the base of it is sentiment analysis. So throughout the year, there's a lot of different ESG reports, but you need to keep up to date to reflect the market sentiments, and that is one way that the sentiment analysis works. And the strength of it will then indicate how much it will impact the company itself. So yeah, so I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thanks everyone for joining us today. I think we'll close the session off here. Feel free to email us if you want. I'll leave my email address in the chat. And yeah, if you have any more questions, if you have feedback, if there's anything else you'd like to know, just drop me an email. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lian.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Biling.